obviously what you're going to hear a lot in the mainstream media is that there's an economic downturn coming as a result of the coronavirus, and everybody was probably just going to have to self-isolate into one of those giant plastic bubbles and sit there for the rest of their life inside there watching reruns of, what was that 80s show? Dallas. You're going to have to watch Dallas. That's what the coronavirus is doing to the rest of the world. I hope you're happy, China. Now, what I want to try and instill in your mind, though, is that, yes, this is going to be bad for society, but not for you, because I'm going to give you the mindset of an opportunist. But I do think that life hurls these events at you. It hurls a lot of generations. In a lot of ways, our generation, what do you mean in a lot of ways? All the ways our generation was sheltered. We never had to face anything really that bad, and still, I'd take this coronavirus of, there's no toilet paper, no, over World War I. But, so, we will be instilling in you the ultimate winning mindset, especially in these situations. I just want to go through a couple of examples before we start to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. Sir John Templeton, who was genius investor of his time, I think he's dead now. Slack. Nah, rest in peace, man. He seemed like a nice guy, very charitable. Good for him. So anyway, he made a lot of his money during one of his best investments in his entire career, I think, was when China was entering into Hong Kong. And everybody else was pulling out of Hong Kong saying, oh my God, it's over, the communists are here. But he realized that society goes on. What will they be needing no matter who's in charge? Cement. So he started investing in cement. What else will they be needing? Well, they'll probably be needing rice, so he invested in rice. All of those kinds of things. While everyone else was pulling out, all these other Hong Kong companies were just diving because of that crisis, he was buying all of these necessity companies for pennies on the pound. This is the same thing that's happening with the coronavirus. You see the stock market, it's in free fall. Everyone's bailing out, jumping out of buildings. I choose my own way out, coronavirus. That's what's happening in the stock market. The same thing happened in the global financial crisis. These crises happen historically, once every couple of decades, or once every decade even. And so the people that profit in those situations are the people that just go, oh, okay, so everybody's panicking. Advantage me. And so they buy up at pennies on the pound. That's what happens in those crises. What I'm saying is, when there is a crisis, society starts reorganizing itself. On top of that, if you are really competent in your skills, actually, let's go on to this point. The seventh of life. There's this concept in self-help that's constantly talking about, which is the seasons of life. And they're just talking that, there is your winters, there is your summers, there is your autumns, and there is your springs. Your autumns, I guess, is actually where we are now, where people think that this is the winter. I don't know about that. I think there's going to be a few more cases in Australia than 1,000. By the time I probably posted this, it'll be like up to 100,000. But what happens in these situations is that you see that a crisis is coming. That's your autumn. That's what I think that we're in now. That's when you should be preparing yourself. So all of these people that are saying, I got laid off, may I just be the first to say, I don't know why I keep laughing at people's misfortune in this video. No, that's really sad to hear. I'm sorry to hear that. But this is what you should be thinking about when you are in these situations, which is that it has freed up your time. Time is valuable. And you're in Australia. It'd be really bad if you're in a third world country and you got fired, but here, you just go on the dole and you live like somebody in the third world. It's great. I actually liked the point when I was on the dole more than I like it now, where I've got so much money. And then crying about my own success in life. But, yes. What you should be looking for in every situation is, how can I take advantage of the situation? That is the mindset that you try to take into everything, right? Because if you don't do that, you just get swept up with the downturn, with the recession. But people that have that psychology, it doesn't matter what the external factors are. As long as they're alive, they are going to fare out well in every situation. That's what's exciting about self-help, because it shows you that external factors don't necessarily determine you. They might push you off, but you can get back on your horse, bucko. That's what's really good about getting these books into your mind. And when people say, what do I read? What do I read? I always say, start with Tony Robbins, and then after that, anything. Go to your library and go, can I borrow 40 books? And then just read all of them. All of them have these little pearls of wisdom. So, the season that when you go into a winter, what happens to the people? It's the classic Aesop's fable, grasshopper and the, what the fuck was it? Whatever, squirrel. I think they're always changed all the time. I think I saw one once that was like the octopus and the squirrel. But how does he breathe up there? There's a rock pool nearby. So, in that fable, what are they talking about? They're saying that this... You know it! Why am I just repeating these little 3-year-old stories to you? Nonetheless, I'll continue. Little grasshoppers having fun throughout summer. I think that was the period between 2008 and now, pretty much, particularly for Australia. We had a nice decade there of nothing. Nice tempered waters, thank you very much, Kevin Rudd. And what did the people that just went, yay, party? Well, they're the grasshopper. What are they in this situation now? When there's going to be an economic downturn, they're the ones that will be the first ones to be laid off. Why? Because people know that they're not necessary. They're kind of just another pair of hands. That doesn't necessarily mean that everybody who is necessary isn't going to be laid off. It depends how serious the recession does. But really what happens in a recession is the first people that get laid off are usually the ones that can afford to be laid off. That's obviously how employers are going to be thinking, right? You are going to get rid of, say, your waitress staffs before you get rid of your managers. It's kind of dog eat dog like that. But then what happens is the people that were, preparing for the winter, because remember that, dude, Game of Thrones had it right. Winter's coming. It always is. There's never going to be a situation where society is doing well forever, exponentially. That's not going to happen. It might just keep getting better and better, and the differences between the falls might be a little more cushiony, but there's going to be situations in life where the entire society is suffering. So the question is, what did you do during the summer? It's kind of a bit jeery now to just feel like, yeah, well, should have thought about that 10 years ago. But now that it is winter, let's just assume that you are a grasshopper for this video. If you were the grasshopper throughout summer, you can change now, because while society is reorganizing itself, that is when the best opportunities happen. This is a real trite point. I think everybody's heard it before, but let's just say it one more time. Probably all the bogans watching from Townsville, yeah, I've got that tattooed on my ass. But the word for crisis is the same word for opportunity in Mandarin. That is a beautiful, beautiful thing. What a wise language it is. Too bad they fucked the planet, but good on you for giving us that phrase. You noble, disease-ridden sages. Think about it for a sec. With crisis comes opportunity. It's just the way the world works. Usually, when society is going too well for too long, what happens? People get complacent. You get all your little fatties getting their negatively geared houses. People just start, eating the fat of the generations that were built up before that. That's exactly what's happened to the Australian economy, and that's why now it will be hit hard. Because the Australian public in general are a bunch of grasshoppers, and now that it's winter, oh my god, the ditto! But they are doing all of these things that they shouldn't be doing. If we properly manage, say, for example, the mining boom, if we properly manage the mining boom, there is no way that we would be in a recession. We would be recession-proof. But what happened? The Australian public kept voting in the Liberals. Why? Because they got these little shitty middle-class tax cuts that... It was the classic thing of like, you can have one marshmallow now, or you can have 2 marshmallows when I come back. What? That's how the Australian public thinks, but most of these people are in their 60s. Pathetic. So, that is what most people have, this mindset of just instant gratification. But, if you are planning out your life now. Let's just assume that you have lost your job, because people already are losing their jobs, even before an official recession has been announced, even though we've been in a per capita recession to 2018. But already, and a lot of this is just the psychological panic that happens around a pandemic. A lot of this is just, oh, we're all going to die, we better fire them now. But if you are one of those people, what I would say to you is, yes, it's winter, it's going to be tough. But what I will say is, what mindset are you bringing to the table? Because this could be the best opportunity of your life, even if you get nothing else from it but a strengthened mindset. Even if now that you have nothing to do but sit on the dole inside all day, every day, if you're just in self-isolation for the next 2 weeks, if you just spent that 2 weeks reading self-help books, you would come out with an improved psychology. And you would have an improved psychology on virtually everyone else in the country, because no one does it. And if you do that, you will be in an advantage for the next time that summer comes around. While you're in winter, what are you doing to prep? I always love this story of this major that was captured by the Vietnamese. And he was in just one of those dirt pits for 4 years. Everybody else that was part of his platoon went insane. He came out of it and he said it was the most profound experience he ever had. Because what did he do every day? 1,000 push-ups. He did sharpening the saw. He did your meditation, he did your reading. Well, he didn't have any books and he wasn't allowed any books, so he did the next best thing, which is really epic. He sat there and thought about a particular day of his life and thought, what lessons could be learned from it and what did I enjoy about that day? He just relived a day in his life. He started conversing with God. So that was his version of meditating. And he did 1,000 push-ups a day, exercising. And when he came out of it, he said that it was the best experience he's ever had. And on top of that, because he just kept imagining this perfect golf game that he was doing for the last 4 years of his life, when he came out, he did that perfect golf game. He was way below par. It was sick. Good for him. But he was trapped in winter. What did he choose to do with winter? That's the same question for you. What are you going to choose to do with winter? If you're going to sit there and wallow, you will just get swept up in the recession that is looming. If you don't, if you choose to take that, how can I take advantage of this situation mindset, you will come out on top. I'm not saying that it'll happen instantly. This is a process that starts today and it starts snowballing. But the next time a crisis comes around, you will be one of the people that are prepared. That's what I want you to think about now. How are you going to take advantage of it? Let's just assume that isolation happens. How are you going to take advantage of that 2 weeks? If you're one of these people that says, I can't afford my food, I can't afford my medication, honestly, my heart goes out to you. That is really tragic. But how can you take advantage of it? Let's just start prepping that in now. Because understand that winter is coming. And the thing is, I just want you to imagine that. I just want you to imagine that it does get to that situation. What is everyone else going to do with that time? Oh, Game of Thrones. That kind of shit. Because it's 2017 and it's still sort of good. Yeah. That's the mindset that you need to be taking into these situations. Just remember, crisis equals opportunity. Write that down and then write out underneath that. How do I take advantage of the situation? How do I best use the time given? If you are fired, I want you to think of it as a gift. I want you to have a cosmic perspective of it. Because honestly, it was the same thing that happened to me the whole time when I was just, broke, going through the motions, going nowhere. I saw every rejection that I got as a plus, because it was, okay, I got rejected for that. Thank God. Something better is around the corner. You need to keep that mindset, because if you do, this is the crazy thing about human beings. The mindset that they bring sort of starts to manifest externally. Now, I know that sounds all hippy-dippy, and I do believe in the hippy-dippy stuff, but I will just say to the people that aren't saying that just 80% of your life is psychological. Whatever psychology you're bringing to the table, it starts influencing the people around you. You know when somebody walks in and they just give off a serial killer vibe? They usually are, aren't they? They did this experiment where they just showed students 2 teachers and they said, what do you think that teacher's going to be like? What do you think that teacher was going to be like? They gave them 5 seconds to look at the piece of paper. Then, the people that actually were their students, after 6 months, they wrote down, what do you think that teacher was like? The people that looked at them for 5 seconds had the same exact, well, not exact, but, very, very, very similar to the people that were there for 6 months. I don't know why I'm talking about that now. But anyway, the point is that's what you need to do. You need to come out with that kind of mindset. How can I take advantage of the situation? Just start redirecting your mind with questions, because that's all your mind does, is just constantly search for questions. So start manually putting those questions in. Alright, I'll see you around. Give me a like, give me more questions. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate that, because I think that it is very, very, very important that you are watching this. I also think the Friendly Geordies is important, particularly the Warhammer videos. Okay, see ya.